Good evening. It is Wednesday, November 7th. Welcome to week 6 of Contemporary Issues in Criminal Justice, the fall quarter. You know who I am, but I'll say Professor Richard Wright. And I am going to provide you with some details and information about this week's assignments. And let's start out by sharing my screen. As soon as it does, there we go. And you can see the information that I don't go over, my instructor information. The additional course information, I've gone over that earlier. So let's see what we got for written assignments for this week. Okay, interviewing in criminal justice and justice studies. Identifies position and point of view of interest. Explains 8 possible interview questions. Use citations in the body and references at the end for 30 points. All right. So let's do this Sunday, 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. And then the discussion post, you know how that works already. And then we are at week 6. So we have 2 more lectures to go. Next one will be not until week 8 and week 10. So from this point on, you're even weeks in the quarter. And I will be posting the recording of this lecture after this session is over, as well as emailing copies to each of you. But then by the time you hear me say that, you will have gotten it if you're not here live. So anyway, let's go right to week 6 announcement. Interviewing within criminal justice fields, and module 6. There is no textbook, so we'll look at the module, which we'll go over in a few minutes. It's not a lot of details, so we won't be very long with this session. Your discussion posts due on yesterday, 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time, answering interview questions. Many of you submitted posts, and I replied to a couple of them. And also, your reply post is due this Saturday, 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. Your written assignment, interviewing in justice studies, we just went over that a few minutes ago. And then my motto, adversity is a springboard to success. You already know what that's about from week 1. So let's very quickly take a look at the calendar. See what the calendar says here. Course calendar, here we go. Okay, so we are at this week, which is the week of the 5th, and you click on that and it tells you, don't disregard that, read chapters 12, 14, but you already know that because there's no textbook. Your initial post, your lecture right now, your reply post Saturday, and then your written assignment that's due by the 11th. Okay. And then next week, you have personal and professional information, initial post, same setup, and then your written assignment. So that's that. So let's see, your written assignment for next week, just so you'll know, because you don't have a lecture next week. That's for week 7 now. Now this is one that I want to tell you guys. You're supposed to share an original video. In other words, you make your own video demonstrating good communication versus poor. Examples, and also examples why explains why examples are good or poor, and use citations and references. Now, a lot of students in my past, I will tell you this now already, when you get to this assignment for week 7, now I'm not talking about week 6 again, you'll ask, can I find an example of a video and provide the link? And the answer is yes, you can. Some students are able to make their own, which are very nice, but a lot of times people don't have the capacity for their systems to be able to do so. So I'm letting you know right now that you can provide a link. It says that in the assignment, okay? So just go over to it just 1 second to show you what I'm talking about. This is, again, remember what I'm showing you right now is not week 6. A 2 to 3 minute original video. Then a 1-page summarizing the contents of your video. Be sure to include your explanation, citations and references. So you want to make sure that you have that information as well. So now, listen to me. It says, if you are unable to create your own video, notify me as soon as possible. You don't have to do that. Don't do that. I'm telling you. As an alternate, you may share a link to an online video that demonstrates good and poor communication, and that's the one that you'll write your 1-page about. Make sure you have citations in the body and references at the end, along with a cover page. That's for week 7. So we got that cleared up, all right? So there should be no confusion. So now, let's go to the assignments for this week. Assignments for this week. 1 to 2-page paper. By the way, make sure that you run your papers through Grammarly so that you don't get hit with that. You guys know what that is by now. 8 potential interview questions, and your rather elaborate responses for each question, not little short ones. Now, don't write it in paragraph form. Don't write it in like a list form. I don't want it that way. So write it in paragraph form. Like my first question, blah 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 blah, and then provide the information under it. Then your second, always you should have 8, okay? And then use your citations in the body of the paper, okay? Make sure you have a cover sheet and reference page, and then your discussion post. And then I'm going to give you a keyword to use for this week to get your live lecture credits. That is due by Sunday, 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time as well. So let's look at the contents. As you already know, this is a course that pretty much is almost as I explained it to students. It's like an independent studies course. And so we give you techniques because you're generally at the point where either you're getting your associate's degree and you're going out to get a job, or a bachelor's. But anyway, the bottom line is that you're preparing to receive an opportunity for employment, or you will be pursuing employment. So we give you some tips in this course to help you each week in every module that are hands-on things for you to do. And these are things that should help you to prepare. So in the event that you have an interview, like the discussion post, pretty much ask a question that helps you to prepare for a potential interview with someone. And interviewing is important, because if you're not a good interviewer, even if you're able to perform very well, you're probably not going to end up getting a job. And so what I usually tell students is that I haven't been through many interviews. The most recent interview I had was in 2014 when I interviewed for what we call the State Program Coordinator position for the School of Justice Studies for Illinois, in which I had the responsibility of the Illinois campuses, which are 4. And so anyway, What I did to prepare myself for my interview was I sat down and I brainstormed the night or nights before the questions that I would ask if I was interviewing someone for the position. In order for me to have done that, I would have had to, of course, research the requirements of the position that I am seeking to obtain, and discover what the requirements are for being able to satisfy or to be qualified for the job. So I would then take my questions surrounding that experience. Now, in the process, I would use the experience that I had already working, because I was already teaching, with some possible questions that I could utilize as a person who would supervise teachers. Well, in your situation, some of you or many of you already work in a field or work in the field that you are pursuing a higher level or maybe a promotion, and so you should be able to think about ideas concerning the area of field. Also, since you've been in this program, you also have started out with the idea of what areas that you want to work in, whether it's parole, probation, law enforcement, as many of you want to do. And if you do, then you get into the specific agencies, like if it's state police, FBI, if it's a county police department. Anyway, the bottom line is that you begin to research and learn. And what do you do? How do you do that? You go to the websites. You may even ask to go visit the facilities and talk to people. You may even do an interview with a person, which you're doing in this course, a field report, where you can learn from an individual who's actually doing what you want to do. And so, anyway, when you get to your interview, you want to be able to think about all that experience and information that you've gathered through over the period of time that you've done it, to be able to include that in formulating your questions. One of the most common interview questions is why you? Why you? What makes you so qualified for it? Now, in addition to the credentials that you have, but there's something that has to separate you, because everybody would probably have credentials. And so when I was doing my interview, I talked about what led me into becoming, I wanted to be a lawyer, what led me into becoming a lawyer. And I shared my story a little bit about, as you guys know, about what, from the first week, what I went through and how it led me into the field. Well, many of you have family members or someone in your family that was close to you, that you have had either to find themselves working in the field, or either you may find that someone ran into a problem in their lives and you saw and you wanted to learn more about how the system operated. And that's what led you to want to become a police officer, a probation officer, a parole officer, a corrections officer, or whatever it is you're doing, whether it's human services. The point of the matter is that you have to be able to recognize that those things that you have been exposed to that led you into going into that field or having an interest in that field comes from your own experiences or knowledge that you have had in the past. Another question that oftentimes is asked, they'll give a hypothetical, and it will involve the ability to be able to determine how you would operate on an ethical fashion. They might give you a hypothetical that if something happened, like for example, let's say for example, you are involved in a crime scene as a police officer, and that you want to write your report, based on what you observe. But then your partner or somebody else has a different version of what happened, and then you'll change your report to line up with theirs. That will get you in trouble because now they're trying to see your ethics as to how would you operate. Would you be professional in terms of doing that? They might even ask you the question if your partner asked you to do such and such thing and you know that it wasn't right, would you do it? Well, of course, most people would say no, they wouldn't do that. But the point of the matter is that they will test your ethical principles, which is why you recall that one of our transferable skills involves ethics. And I've already shared that early on in the course, but your interview questions could be surrounding that to test that. Another area that is frequently asked is your position regarding dealing with individuals who are different from you. And what they're then trying to determine is your position on diversity. How would you respond to in a situation based on someone who is you're African American, you come across Caucasian, or vice versa, or you come across a person who's Hispanic and you're African American or Caucasian, and those kinds of things. How would you communicate with that individual, in your position? You came across a person who had a different sexual preference than you, and that became part of the issue that you were dealing with in terms of your investigation. You'll have to deal with that as a corrections guard. You'll have to deal with that as a probation officer, parole officer, as a law enforcement person. Have to deal with that as a defense attorney, as a prosecutor in criminal cases as well. So the bottom line is that how you operate under diversity, as once again, one of our transferable skills is to prepare you for that. You should be prepared for that because we every course we involve some discussion of diversity in the college to help you get prepared for that. Be able to anticipate those kinds of questions, and then finally back to the final bullet point. It says prepare interview questions and possible answers that relate to you and your field. That's what I said at the outset. You will find out how very much and by the way, there are people that go online, they try to find questions online for possible answers that relate to your field. You can do that. But the key thing is you have to be able to think from your own experiences, your situations and circumstances, because those will stick with you better than looking at something online. And that's what I did when I prepared my interview. And I mean, I had 25 or 30 questions, and my interview probably lasted 15, 20 minutes. And, that doesn't have anything to do with my resume. We already had a session that we deal with that, or we will have a session dealing with that. The point of the matter is that you want to be prepared when you sit down in that interview for any possible question. You should not be caught by surprise about any possible question that comes up. One of the other things that will happen in an interview, if you go to a particular agency, they'll want to see and test you on what you know about them, what attracts you to them, not just in the area that you want to operate in, but that specific agency. Give that some thought in terms of preparing your possible questions and answers as well. And so those are just a few things that will help you in terms of dealing with the topic this week of interviewing. And so, again, focus in on your discussion post questions and your written assignment, which is on the topic of interviewing. And so with that, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to give you a key word. And the key word is interviewing. That's it. I'm not going to say it more than once. And you give me that, and then you'll get your points. Yeah. Okay. So I'll see you guys in a couple of weeks, and we're at the halfway point of this course. So if you have any questions, you know the rule in terms of reaching out to me. So I'm going to say good night at this time.